We're live. We're live up in here. Live at YouTube and all the algorithmic bots moving through the broadcast, trying to find those trigger spots. Are you a bot? All right. What's good, everyone? Propping on here. Just thought I'd drop in real quick, just tell you a couple things that have been on my mind. I like some of these discussions I've been getting into, talking about, books like this, Quantum Psychology by Robert Anton Wilson, or books like this, The Psychobiology of Mind Body Healing by Ernest Rossi. It's pretty cool. And where it gets me thinking, or what it gets me thinking about, is what Robert Anton Wilson really got into in the late 90s and early 2000s, which was neuroscience, right? And he and Timothy Leary already were presenting their theoretical psychological model as like a form of neuropsychology or neurophilosophy or neuroscience, because the reason that they put that word there was to draw attention to the fact that the role that our physical brain plays in interpreting the infinite amount, or near seemingly infinite amount, or exponentially huge amount of information that's signaling off around us all the time, and being processed within our body minds. And so not to get too much go off the deep end too soon, just that notion of neuroscience, and kind of just meditating or thinking of certain places or contemplations that my mind went from reading the works of Tim Leary and Robert Anton Wilson. I shared with you guys in an earlier video, a meditation, I suppose, or contemplation that I created, or Wilson encouraged people to think about the things that he was writing about for extended period of time, and then write down what you found out through holding this perspective, right? Or thinking about something in a new way. And that thinking about something in a new way, was this meditation on organism as a whole interacting with environment as a whole. And as I said, Wilson got this term from Alfred Korzybski, I believe, the creator of this thing called general semantics. And Korzybski's, one of his main, intellectual goals was to get across to people the role that our perception plays in interpreting all this information, and further than just our perception, but the way that we think with words, and the structure of our sentences, especially if you speak anything that's derived from the Indo-European language group, right? So this awareness of the way that we make sense of the world, and the way we make sense of the world is through different sorts of associative maps, right? And a map could be with words, or a map could be with imagery, or however people internally orient themselves to the world around them. The argument Korzybski would make is that's a map, right? And every phrase or word or descriptor you know, signifier is a map to a degree, right? So organism as a whole interacting with environment as a whole, as thinking about a different orientation of just thinking about, oh, myself in the world, right? Because looking at, what comprises an organism, right? There are, to just name, you know, to put some kind of context to it, like 11 different systems within the body. And I went over that in an earlier video. But the systems just being these biological processes that consist of feedback loops or whatever, but you have your muscular system, your skeletal system, your integumentary system, that sort of stuff, endocrine system, immune system, etc. And so when looking at organism as a whole, interacting with environment as a whole, we looked internally for those couple videos there that I did, looking at all the systems that comprise an organism as a whole, right? And so now flipping the script, or looking at the other side of the equation, the environment as a whole, right? So what is this environment itself made of, and that you are, or the organism that is interacting with or intersecting with? How do you define an environment, right? And off the top, this is just off the top here. Uh, one sort of environment is like a natural environment, if you will, right? I know there's plenty of fucking smart people terms for all this shit, you know what I mean? But like natural environment, where it's not constructed through human hands or technology. So an organism, person can be alone within and interact with an environment as a whole in the natural world. Then there's also environments within yourself, right? Your internal landscape of how you communicate with yourself, your own psyche, and that's a whole path of learning, that internal landscape, right? That's an environment, right? And then there are the environments of a collection or a group of organisms interacting with each other, and then as a group interacting with the environment as a whole. So like on three different dimensional plane there, you have one organism interacting with the group interacting with the environment as a whole, right? And then individuals interacting with each other within that environment, et cetera, right? So I'm going to look at the third sort of environment uh, in this equation. So an organism as a whole interacting with this sort of environment as a whole. And I'm going to draw from Timothy Leary's work to kind of, go a little bit deeper in on this particular contemplation, if you will. So, Leary was, before he got super known as being the acid guru, kicked out of Harvard or whatever, the beginning of his work as a psychologist was in the field of group therapy, right? He was an early practitioner of group therapy, which came about itself in the late 1940s. And Leary was going to school. I think he was going to Berkeley around that time in the late 1940s. And so he was an early practitioner of group therapy, and he sat in group therapy sessions. He ran group therapy sessions, and he and his team eventually created a personality diagnostic tool for therapists and whoever else, to come to businesses right on up to the prison that processed Timothy Leary many years later. They gave him the test of personality that was based on the work that he did, right? And so that work was based on observing people in group therapy sessions, and he all right, got a phone call there, we'll leave that alone. uh, he he later, well, through this group therapy stuff, one thing that he was able to focus on, or what he used from other therapeutic models or something, was how people use words to describe themselves and others, and particularly like adjectives within this group therapy session. So observing the way people spoke to each other, and I guess they said, my impression of you is like this, or etc. And then the way people describe themselves. These were two ways that one could get an understanding within that modality of to pinpoint a certain personality. And Leary's work was like part of this wider thing of post World War II American psychotherapy, and not psychotherapy, well, just the huge psychology, all those departments. There was that quest of trying to decipher and understand human personality for so many different reasons, in a military sense, for how the military could try to understand people personalities so they could use that knowledge to better propagandize to them, to PR and advertising companies doing all these tests on human personality to see how they could better sell products and ideas and wars to people, right? To people who were trying to understand better the position of what this whole thing is about, life and our role in it, and what is this thing called personality. Because, I mean, you can argue psychology itself, right? Freud is analyzing personality. So this is all part of the quest for people to gain knowledge of self and to understand themselves in the world that they are surrounded by, and other people in it, other organisms within their environment, and Leary was, that's, I believe that that's what he was seeking to do, to utilize this knowledge for, self, the increase of intelligence for oneself, and to be a, cooler person in life, right? So the work that he did was also infused with an inspiration from game theory, and this huge book, um, you know, was economic games and economic behavior, theory of games and economic behavior by von Neumann and Morgenstern. That was written in 1944, right? So that was all around the same time that post World War II, just near post World War II, this new theoretical approach to life and human interaction, game theory, and Leary, he was hugely inspired by game theory and applied some of the principles to his social psychological models of understanding human personality, right? And so in 1959, Leary puts out his book, The Interpersonal Diagnosis of the Human Personality, which was a highly praised psychological book. And the Leary interpersonal grid becomes a widely used tool for assessment of personality. Like I said, from corporations to schools to prisons, utilize this thing for many years to come, and it still might be used. Tests to given out to potential employees based on the Leary interpersonal grid, that those could still be used. So Leary's book came out in 50. Is it 57 or 59? It could be 57, right? And Robert Anton Wilson liked to say that Leary played a big part in the transactional psychology movement. If he did, he's gotten a bit blacklisted because his name does not really come up. His work, it doesn't come up in association with Eric Berne, for instance, or transactional psychologists overall. That's a shame, because I see these similarities, because transactional psychology also borrowed a lot from game theory. This may be the most well-known book from that little psychological movement was Eric Berne's Games People Play, which came out in 1964, right? And so he's applying these notions of game theory and the metaphor itself to human interpersonal, communication and psychology, right? And Byrne broke things down into 4 quadrants, a winner script, a loser script. People carry these scripts with them throughout their life, wherever they go, and they take this for granted, that they are moving off of these scripts that are functioning just below the conscious level of conditioning within us, and they kind of control our movements without our awareness, if we are not aware of the role that these scripts play in us. And then as an effect, when we're following these scripts, these are games that we are playing with other people. So this metaphor was very popular then. People, all these theoreticians seemed very excited about game theory. So Eric Berne's book and transactional psychology, as I said, were very enthusiastic about applying aspects of game theory to their work, as was Leary. Well, another thing, people still get geeked up on game theory because, for rightly so, because it was pointing out some really great insights about human interaction. And game theory plays a big role in QAnon, right? Or at least the appearance of game theory does, or maybe it's the application of game theory, or decades of studying people through these models of game theory, and then it being utilized in terms of creating a propagandist cult, and being able to finally activate the conspiranoids, and get them to do something in reality, because that's always was the case made about conspiracy theory communities, is that they don't ever really do anything IRL. It's only talk. Well, these, somehow the marionettes were able to pull the strings along enough to get it moving on January 6th. And this is why it's very important to keep thinking about this stuff, and keep analyzing, and keep asking, how exactly does this happen, right? But more importantly, how do I get an understanding to this whole structure of just analyzing this shit? Because I'm telling you, like, what's coming down the pipe is going to be even more intense, just like stuff from global climate change, like things, this collapse of the wall between fact and fiction is only going to crack more, and just give way more, and it's going to be like the levee breaking, and a flood of synthetic reality just freaking embedded everywhere. Maybe, but that seems to be where things are going. And so this idea of the structure of QAnon utilizing game theory and then the idea of LARP, live action role playing, and the alternative reality game, right? There's that fusion, if you will, of these interpretations of reality, and this idea of creating simulated realities now that we get lost in the sauce and mistake the map for the territory and end up looking like fucking idiots. And so this particular discussion is like part of like this wider, if I extend the lens to look at this wider picture of how we got here, right? And looking at the trajectories of the whole notion of the role that fantasy plays in the life of humanity, and but then how we are now reaching this point where, I mean, it's not all fantasy, it's this synthetic reality, right? If it's created through the internet, it's hyper reality, to use Baudrillard's terminology, like then filtered out and projected onto real life, and the confusion ensues. But these certain threads that are within uh, the the structure, it's the substrate of what things like QAnon and other things like that already are. So for instance, I'm going to look at other alternative reality games, and I'd like to speak to alternative reality game creators as we look at that side of things. And another aspect, really fundamentally to things, when people LARP, for instance, or do role playing, attention is paid, or people have said, well, that's like improv. Yes, it is like improv, and improvisation is an aspect of acting, right? So uh, all of this is people playing with the idea of acting. More people want to be actors than they realize, I think, right? And that's a whole other video, right? But and that's in a positive sense for the most part. But now, if we're looking at the role that acting has played, theater has played uh, in humanity and civilization, and take it back even further to ritual and the role that masks play in ancient rituals, and this need to walk between worlds, if you will. But what is happening is people are losing touch with the ability to know, just like Jim Carrey in The Mask, they forget when the fucking mask is on their face. You know what I mean? And so we got to learn how to be like how, like Bryan Cranston breaks it down, how he would, at the end of the day, playing Walter White, all he would do is just take the wardrobe off and he would be good, right? Because if these new realities, are, a more multiplicity and abundance of alternality, different worlds, right, that potentiate and arrive through these technologies, like, so how we don't get swept away, and be able to ballast oneself. Victor Hugo once said, ballast yourself in reality and let the waves of fucking, I forget, inspiration take you away, or whatever, right? Like, well, how do you ballast yourself in reality when even our perception is perceiving multiple realities now, as reflected in these communication technologies like the internet, that are going to become more embedded within the fabric of our everyday lives. Fucking Alexa's already following you around the fucking room. You know what I mean? Like, it's already studying your biometrics and your fucking step distribution and how much percent your fucking body mass index and your fucking heat. It's going to scan you and then tell you what to go to the doctor for, but we're not there yet. And perhaps if we analyze how we got to a situation like this, we can better prepare ourselves for the onslaught of, fucking synthetic reality, alternative reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, et cetera, et cetera. And with when there are these, when once people or humans have now, you know, the 20th century or whatever, whenever it started, this idea that um, there's not just one way of looking at the world. This brings up the idea of alternate realities, if you will, not in the extreme sense of what has gone on in the last number of years, being like, no, the way that you see it is absolutely fucking wrong. It's like, what do you mean? We both see that the fucking light is red. You're gonna tell me that, you know, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, what I'm talking about is just how everyone's perception apparatus is different, and everyone's, if you are able to fully describe what you are seeing, it's going to be a little bit different than everybody else, you know. But learning the art of being able to describe what's happening in your internal mechanisms, you know, in everyday life, I mean, that's a skill, you know, and it takes practice, and you have to practice that, just like the ability to analyze and look at the world around you and perhaps make, you know, as accurate maps as possible, you know. Like, you analyze the map of your body or your car, well, you know where the brake hose is now, and you can change your brake hose, and you could bleed the brakes, and you can fucking fix your fucking car in ways that, you know, save yourself a lot of money, you know. But I'm swerving all over the map right now, you know, but that's because I zoomed back to try to present this wider frame of this understanding of the idea of applying game theory to, you know, an approach to analyzing everything, really, because when there's multiple realities, well, then someone else's reality could appear like a game in a way, right? Like, not it's not to like put down the way that they view the world, and demean or belittle, you know. It's, you look at your life then as a game as well, and it's not like as some weird, like, you know, games for the winners and this is how you win. It's like, well, you got to figure out what your own game is, right? And well, one thing to meditate on that might help do that is um, analyzing, you know, having certain tools, basically analyzing the who, what, when, where, and why to every situation, if you can, or interaction, if you will, right? And people can't do this all the time. So this is why it's a certain meditation. But this is something that Tim Leary, I think, probably tried to apply, or this was part of his theoretical approach. What I'm about to say comes from Cosmic Trigger, page 37, where Robert Anton Wilson is talking about how one of the ways that Leary applied game theory to his psychological approach, and it's what Leary called the seven-dimensional game model, basically. So this is where viewing things through the perspective of game theory, Leary, like Eric Byrne, is commenting on a group setting and people interacting. And what Leary said he found was that many neuroses are rooted in a certain misinterpretation of the signals around oneself in the environment of people that surround them. So Leary gave a sports analogy, and he said that it's like if someone who thinks that they're playing football is walking around a baseball field during a baseball game, and they're trying to play football. So obviously that's not going to work. And oftentimes what he said he found was that people have this, you know, this misinterpretation happening with different groups. And the thing to learn is first and foremost being able to make sense of the signals that you are observing, and to be able to correctly, as much as possible, assess them and label them as accurately as possible. So that person walking around the baseball game might be able to then, with say tools provided within Leary's group therapy session, might be able to say, oh, wait a minute, they're not throwing a leather ball football around, they're hitting a baseball. And because humans have this amazing capacity to get lost in the sauce, to become unconscious to our own abstractions, our own we created Santa Claus and made Santa Claus real. You know what I mean? Like, people are constantly creating things that aren't there, right? So you could be walking around misinterpreting all these different signals and sounds, because you somehow you've rigidly constructed everything is a football game. Everywhere I go, everyone's playing football, when that is not the case, and then you could be on the extreme end of it and start running up and start tackling motherfuckers, start tackling the third baseman, you know what I mean? And take the fucking baseball up and spike it on the fucking ground, start doing your little dance in the end zone and shit. And then what happened? Man, you're an asshole then. You know what I mean? You're playing the wrong fucking game. Yeah. So one of Leary's contributions, if you will, was in the idea of accurate self-observation, right? By being able to observe the feedback loops of your environment, or the feedback from your environment, to assess what's going on, if you will. And again, he called it the 7-dimensional game model. And this he created this, or this came up in reference to when he was working in this thing called the Concord prison experiments. It was a prison in Massachusetts, and he and his team, like Richard Alpert and Ralph Metzner and others, were working with prisoners in the prison up in Massachusetts. And one of the criteria of assessing people in general is someone sicker or healthier, right? Sicker or better. And Leary, being, a cantankerous rebel and stickler for words, he didn't like that analogy, someone sicker or better. To him, those are kind of fluffy abstractions. What exactly does that mean, right? So he wanted to define these things more operationally. And how did he do that? Well, he rooted it to bodies in space and time. And this is how you ballast yourself when the influx of information is going to exponentially increase, right? Is you gain the sense of your internal ballast and center. Simple enough, but you can do that with your mind as well, by getting as clear as possible with your thinking, right? And one way of doing that is just getting clear with the terms, right? And so, and defining things within a context of space and time, right? So that's the operational definition of stuff. So when Leary was determining was something sicker or better, he was like, enough with that, malarkey. He asked, well, where are their bodies in space time, and what signals are they exchanging, right? So he was rooting things then in the existential, sensorial, sensational world, right? The phenomenological world, right? And so the 7 dimensions of this game model, right, that he called, is the ability, then utilizing this little tool set, we can gain further insight and definition, and a fun way of thinking about that phrase, organism as a whole interacting with environment as a whole. We look at, one, the rules being played out. So you're new to an environment, right? And I think Leary wrote about this, that he applied this stuff to when he got sent to prison, right? And if anyone watching this is unaware of like Leary's own adventures through the American prison system and his escaping and then being kidnapped by the CIA in Afghanistan, right? And brought back and re-imprisoned. That's a fun and wild story, and I recommend everything this guy wrote, right? So he applied maybe the 7-dimensional game model to when he was in prison. And the first thing you observe are the rules being played, so you look, listen, observe. I'm gonna swerve in my own metaphors, well, metaphors borrowed from the 5%er lexicon as filtered through hip hop, right? Because I listened to a lot of hip hop in my life, and I love the language of it, right? So there's a substrate of things that come from the 5%er model, centered around the supreme mathematics as a way of observing and analyzing, being an organism as a whole, interacting with an environment as a whole, because there are different systems and schools that offer this similar knowledge, which is basically, to get you thinking as sharply, philosophically, and scientifically as possible about yourself and the world, and we're all trying, and every model fails, and that's why we have to pick up the torch, dust off the books, and see what we could add on, to make these models more akin and in tune with today, right? Because if information is exponentially increasing, well, then, this is out of date, but there's so much good knowledge here, it's deserving to be added onto, so without further ado, the 7-dimensional game model, which perhaps Leary applied when he was in jail, right? And he's looking at one, rules being played. And that's what I'm saying about look, listen, observe, and also respect. You have to utilize your sense data, your 5 senses, to observe exactly where you're at, and respect, okay, this is where I'm at, and perhaps this is where I am. Play your position. Oh shit, I'm in this place now. I like to think I'm over here and I'm like this, but I'm in this place and they're not letting me be like this. I'm seeing just how it is. They won't let me be like this. I gotta play like this if I'm gonna fucking, how many work environments are like that? Your manager, coworkers, there's roles that people play. So observing those rules being played, right? And then the second part of the 7-dimensional game model is then, after observing the rules being played, see what rules are tacitly accepted by all the players. So I guess sort of those unspoken rules, those implicit uh, rules. I guess it's those things that you observe that if you ask about it, you're going to be considered some sort of asshole. Like if you're at your job and you notice like something about your boss, and notice, and it stands out, he's got like a fucking second head growing out of the top of his head, and you want to say something about the head growing on top of his head, but you are observing because it's your first day on the job and you want to keep your fucking job, then no one else is talking about the head on top of his fucking head. So you observe, that's a tacit rule being observed by all the players. Don't talk about that shit if you want to keep your job, right? And okay, so moving forward, the third thing are, so what are the strategies for winning, right? So you go into a place, well, then you have to get clear on, well, what's your definition of winning? What are you trying to win? So then you're in a collection of people. People got different personalities. Everyone's trying to win in different ways, right? They're trying to win different things, um, yeah, and that's a whole other video of all what people how they define winning in their particular situation. Wilson and Leary, they talk about the masochist role of winning by losing. That's the association with or the integration perhaps of the work of Eric Berne, and also Wilson's own fascination or something, or his own observation of looking at humanity. A lot of people are stuck in this sadomasochistic circuit, right? He called it, or also Colin Wilson commented on that. He called it the Laurel Hardy principle, right? And the Laurel and Hardy principle is, the sadist and the masochist. The guy that has to fucking smack somebody, and the person that likes getting the fucking guy that wants to get smacked in the head, right? And whatever else, the masochistic winning by losing. This is how Wilson was integrating, and so was Leary, that notion of winner script, loser script. Eric Byrne, games people play, et cetera, right? And then the fourth aspect of the 7-dimensional game model that Leary is telling people to look out for are the goals of the game, or what's the purpose of the game, right? So again, let's look at a work environment. A work environment is kind of like a construction. It's a game, and the game is getting money to survive, to live, right? We work to get money so we can survive, right? So the purpose of that game, right, or the goal of that particular game in a work environment is to succeed at your job, whatever it is, sales, make a lot of sales. That's the goal, right? And for that being only one construction of an environment, right, there are many other sorts of goals, right? The fifth is the language of the game and the semantic worldview implied, right? The sixth is the characteristic space-time locations, and the seventh is the characteristic movements in space-time. So from the language, the space-time locations, and the movements in space-time. So, Leary is basically constructing an early operational chart, and further meditation. Something that he did as well was, and I did this too, as just sort of as a meditation. What he was talking about was he like charted excuse me, his day, and did this for a few days, and like every 20 minutes he an alarm went off or something, and he then wrote down things based on these 7-dimensional game models, like where was he, what was he doing, who else was there, what was happening. And this is all done this is what provides an existential definition of someone's personality and someone's self, because within the Leary perspective, there is no absolute essential self. All we are, for the most part, reflections of those that we're surrounded by, or the games that we play, us as an organism as a whole, interacting with these environments as a whole. And within those environments and those other organisms come these games. And these games define status, I don't know, the personality, essentially, is what Leary is saying. These game rules set up. And with another major part aspect of Leary's work is liberation from being stuck on the baseball field thinking you're playing football, right? From being stuck in a rigid response to the world. Because Leary's interpersonal grid, again, there were 64 options that are available to a human personality in a response to any stimuli from other people and other environments as a whole, and a life well lived, perhaps, is a self that is able to flexibly move and respond, in balance with your organism as a whole, right? Respectful and with dignity to your own boundaries, and you have the ability to communicate those boundaries to others in the environment as a whole, where there are, through communication, balances. And oftentimes that doesn't happen, but this is the work that needs to be done. And I think it's cool to meditate on these sorts of things, these jewels that Robert Anton Wilson and Tim Leary were dropping, you know, and this overarching thing, I should just call it this, the meditation of organism as a whole interacting with environment as a whole. And now Leary has provided some defining terms to just this sort of way of thinking about it, right? Not saying this is the whole point of this is saying this is not the one way to describe things, but this is a fun way to interact with your environment as a whole. Do that. Do this as a meditation. You know what I mean? Go out when the opportunity, when this COVID thing is done, go to different social groups and see, just hold these 7 points in mind as you analyze this new situation that you're in, you know, and that alone is sort of the point of Leary's work, is that we need this diversity in life, and we need all these different sorts of signals, this multicultural, multi-diverse, every fucking awesome voice popping off in all directions. Like this is where life is going to keep growing and expanding and evolving and reforming in higher levels of complexity. And as we live within these higher levels of complexity, and not stuck only interacting with the world from our limbic system, as perhaps these fucking Silicon Valley jerks have figured out to, call it anxiety capitalism. You know what I mean? Like money driven by your limbic system, because that's the thing. The fear and anger gets the most fucking clicks on your computer. You know what I mean? Like figuring out, prefrontal cortexual, breaking down, ways to interact with the world, and I think that was one area where Leary and people like him in their work, that's where they're going, that we can respond vigorously to all these different signals going on. That diversity around us activates more and more our prefrontal cortex, which is that aspect that makes humans different than other animals, right? And so if we're able perhaps to, keep functioning from this prefrontal cortexual, part of our fucking, our mind, our brain, then according to Leary, right, our intelligence has increased, to keep up and survive, right? Like, because if we don't increase our intelligence, we're functioning increasingly from our fucking limbic system and making the same mistakes, Humpty Dumpty and all over the motherfucking place, like making the same stupid fucking mistakes over and over and over, and well, that's the point of getting clear on terms, and clear with being able to look, listen, observe, and also respect the environment that you're in, because we are constantly just self-hypnotizing ourselves, according to Robert Anton Wilson. Like we have this ability, they call them the rose-colored glasses, figuring out. Leary and Wilson are about being able to take off those glasses and maybe put on another pair of glasses and seeing, oh shit, and then analyzing, whoa, how does light work in response to wearing these glasses? And basically, they're just functioning as age-old philosophers, who are supposed to, you know, um, inspire the desire in others to think as much as possible about the role of yourself, to do the knowledge of yourself, the knowledge about yourself, and the world around you, um, yeah. So I like that a lot, about Leary's uh, integration of game theory into his psychological models, and I think there's a lot there, and not just now for knowledge itself, if you will, but like knowing then that the type of work that Leary was doing, study of personality, that's been studied for decades now, and now it's been weaponized, right? Like, so it's kind of like you got to do the knowledge or die. For real though, like we live in this world now where it's even more important for you to like get like as clear as possible, like where you are at and what is around you as clear as possible right now, and to get clear on priorities. Well, I don't want to start preaching at people, but the priorities just being, how do I like utilize my body as an instrument of observation of the environment, the world around me, without needing to rely on other people telling me what this is. I hand you something, right? And then I tell you that's an apple, right? And you bite into it. Oh yeah, it's an apple. It's an apple. Well, our our role more and more as being informed citizens in this world of increasing information, right, is to be able to have our own tool set to analyze these basic fucking things and not have to have someone tell you that that's an apple to know that that's an apple. Um, that's it, really. I wanted to just throw that out there, that little meditation on organism as a whole, comprised of these at least 7 systems, each with their own subsystem, interacting or intersecting with environment as a whole, you know, and these environments made up of other organisms, interacting. And then through these interactions, culture itself, you know, culture is an outgrowth of humans interacting, basically, right? But within these cultures, there are rules, and those rules have been, basically morals, ethics, and morals are these rules, right? And then there are other rules, right? And so just these are tools to know the rules, tools to analyze the rules, tools to decipher the rules. Because, you know, that person out there playing football on the baseball field doesn't know the rules. He's running around like the cast of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, wondering what are the rules. There's no one running, throwing red flags. There's an umpire fucking bumping his fucking chest. Hey, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? It's Enrico Palazzo pulling off the mask and he's singing. It's fucking Frank Drebin. You know what I mean? What are the rules? Well, these are just certain tools of getting clear on being able to decipher game rules, right? Because then once you analyze it as game rules, it's all also part of this wider thing of Bob and Leary, this notion of the social construction of reality. There's a book, called The Social Construction of Reality. It's like a form of an outgrowth of phenomenology, right? And this viewing reality and people as these ways of games that people play. Well, when reality is socially constructed, it's much easier to look at things in this game model perspective, and a lot of people have done it, and then it's extended since Leary made that 7-dimensional game model, and he charted his movement through space time throughout the day. He was providing the metrics to himself. I mean, now we're at the stage where people have the Fitbits and whatever else, and all these metrics are being used. And that's a whole other video. But Leary's fun to study to get a cool way of analyzing, where it is at today. The application of game theory to psychology and social psychology. I mean, it's all being used now in the internet. And I would say Leary's work was most um, driven by maybe to have people function from their prefrontal cortex, their neocortex. He was he was he was the, the architect, George Carlin in the Matrix. You know what I mean? Like, or trying to push people towards becoming neo, and functioning from this area of our brains more, perhaps, where there are some games that are set up, QAnon, that want to keep people functioning from their diencephalon and their limbic system, right? Keep people stuck in those first two circuits, et cetera, et cetera, and not clearly stating the rules of the game, and that it is a game, even though it's not a game, right? Like that notion of this is not a game within alternative reality games, right? Um, I'll leave it at that for this little session. Um, but I want to put one last bit of attention to Eric Burns' book again, Games People Play, and the metaphor that he chooses for these internal maps that people hold that keep them within a personality structure in the different new environments that they go to, and that was the idea of script. Winner scripts, loser scripts. Well, his use of the word script is correlating with the idea of acting, which brings it back to this again, the role, to look at, culturally, anthropologically, what is acting, right, and what is theater, right, and this desire, or this thing that humans do, not even a desire, it's this, this maybe evolutionarily, this is something that we do. We create simulations of reality, like our own conscious simulations of reality. Not to say that, we're always simulating reality by just trying to describe the words that we utilize, um, but we are consciously creating these maps. These maps are simulations of reality, and whole plays and TV shows, movies, and all that stuff. It's just a part of our culture, this idea of acting. But if we really look at it, what is that, right? It's utilizing your imagination, and staying in touch with this ability of play that, most young mammals, just always have. We have when we're kids, that the imagination activated when we're, and the world makes you have to work, and then you can't fucking utilize your imagination every day. You just have to do the same fucking stupid thing in order to get paid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Before you know it, you're stuck in one little rigid space-time point. You can't really move around. You don't feel liberated. You don't feel fucking free. You know what I'm saying? Like, but when you are able to activate your imagination and create these little uh, um, scripts, right? And different realities. This is the role that art plays in helping, one stay neurologically liberated, right? The internet has, just like movies have, has it's brought in some great things, but it has atrophied the imagination muscle in people, because how we used to get this information of different realities, saying reading books, you have to utilize your imagination in order to see these things, through the words being created, through the words being used. You have to create it in your mind's eye. Now you just see it all. Your fucking imagination muscle can be totally atrophied. Well, along comes some weird fucking website thing, that's totally activating your imagination and driving your imagination and steering your imagination to go where these motherfuckers wanted you to go, or wanted these people to go. You know what I mean? Like, but just this knowledge of self that this self understanding that we gain by just freaking looking at this stuff through all these different ways is itself adding to your intelligence and internal, freedom. So understanding like that, what role does acting in the theater play in humanity's experience, and then bringing it even further back to the idea of this ritual, ritual fucking, fire fucking fireside stories, you know what I mean? Like the cave paintings, like this role that art has always played in humanity. And it's that ability for us to present different realities, right? And we're just reaching this collision and coalescence point, part of the singularity, right? They call it a singularity. That's saying it's going Kurzweil and that crew calling this huge whatever's next of this breakthrough of increased information and singularity. But really it's this multiplicity, this multiverse, as Grant Morrison and DC break it down, this multiplicity that occurs, this like rising of complexity, but all these different multiple things pop off. And so instead of wanting to go backwards, right, and want more safety, and then want other people to make these hard decisions for us, like, is this propaganda, is this misinformation or disinformation? Like, I don't know, I can't fucking think for myself. No, motherfucker. It's like so important for more people to learn how to fucking think for themselves, because according to Leary and Wilson and others or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, when you know how to think for yourself, you might be able to know how to help other people. Just fucking pure and simple, like saw this really great YouTube talk by this woman who was giving a talk about neuroscience, and she was dropping all this really cool knowledge, but she was talking about the neuroscience of mindfulness. And so the Andrew Candela, thanks man, right on brother. The one huge aspect of mindfulness that's very important is the increase in kindness and compassion, because the more insight we gain about ourselves and humanity and the world, like, man, the shadow, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men, right? The shadow knows, you know what I mean? Like, we look at what this is what's happening. The internet is also forcing these things. Like, I had this, I did a meditation retreat many years ago. It was an insight meditation retreat, right? And the teacher, right, would tell the students every day what new meditation to do as you increase your meditation every day, right? And he had this cool metaphor about human mind, and every fucking human mind, maybe even animal minds, but the human mind, right? Like, when we're doing living our everyday lives, uh he drew the analogy to a bucket of water, right? And so when we just think, oh yeah, I'm good in my everyday life, it's like looking in the bucket of water, and it looks fairly, it's clean, it's a clean bucket of water. But insight meditation and things that force your attention to really look, to look at what Gurdjieff called the horror of the situation. Look at the world, man. Look at what human beings are doing to each other. The fact that we have created megaton bombs and we fucking incinerated the flesh and the fucking like people, earth, like babies, just fucking just eradicated old people who did nothing wrong, collateral damage in war. We have this increasing ability to fucking kill increasing amounts of people over greater and greater fucking distances in quicker amounts of time. Like, this is where it's at. You know what I mean? Like, and people don't like looking at that. There's this mechanism of the human mind where it's at for the most part. And that's an aspect of what Wilson would call the conspiracy of stupidity, this area of willed ignorance, right? The shout out to Michael Johnson for hipping me to this field of study called angtology. An angtology, I guess it's based off agnosticism, agnotology, or what the fuck ever. It's like a sociological understanding of societies, like things that societies don't want to think about, right? This willed ignorance around things, right? And insight meditation, like things like the perhaps aspects of the internet today, like, are forcing insights upon people. And so, like, the meditation teacher was talking, He was saying, well, in everyday life, that bucket of water looks fairly clean. But once you apply insight meditation, it's like taking a stick and stirring it around the bucket. And then all of a sudden you see all this dirt coming up, all this fucking dirt. And that's the sediment of, the five hindrances within the Buddhist, perspective. You know what I mean? Like, these hindrances that through continued meditation, well, how do you lift this dirt up from your bucket? Well, you can't do it angry. You can't punch the dirt out of the water. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta do it gentle. And in order to do that, you need concentration, but you also need compassion. And this is uh kind of, that's me adding on to this woman's talk about the neuroscience of mindfulness. Is, she's this highfalutin doctor, which is really cool, right? Her talking about how important it is, even neurologically, that the more we look at ourselves, the more important it is that we increase this capacity for kindness, both toward ourselves and others, and that alone is a ridiculously heavy meditation, because as she said in the video, and even probably Buddha said, if this motherfucker even existed a couple thousand years ago, that it's like this reaction of people yelling at ourselves all the time. You stub your toe, you stupid fuck, why'd you stub your fucking toe? Sometimes I catch myself passing a reflection of myself in a building. I'm like, what the fuck are you looking at, asshole? Oh shit, that's me. Oh damn, that's me. I'm mean to myself. I gotta be more nice to myself. And that's what we're all trying to do, figure out these different ways of trying to be nice to ourselves, right? And the importance of communication and clarity in analyzing where we are in space time, right? And what's going on around us. So where is our organism as a whole in space time, and what are we interacting with in this environment as a whole, right? In space time. And then boom, you got a little bit more knowledge of yourself. You know what I mean? And that idea of scripts, people holding winner scripts and loser scripts, the notion of improv, it all just touches on this level that uh, is people have within themselves, that the idea of play, in the fucking coolest sense of the word, where there are games and infinite games, and the utilizing play to increase joy. Like, these are important sorts of things. And I'll talk more about that sort of stuff in future videos, like, because I'm sure that there are, especially uh there are artists that fueled their work, from James Joyce to Robert Anton Wilson to the great acting teacher Win Hanman. That's one of the secrets of art, right? I'm going to drop it to you guys right now, a little over an hour in. Only the true motherfuckers are still watching. One of the fucking secrets of art is the ability for the artist to learn to access joy and to get better and feel more joy in your life, and then process that through your art, right? Like, so I'm gonna leave it there for a minute. I'll leave it at that with the with that notion. Do you read chat? I don't understand. Oh yeah, I'm reading chat right now. Anakin Skywalker, what's good? What's good, Anakin? What's good, Andrew Candela? Thank you for, I told you already, thank you for the compliment. Fan of my channel. Thank you, bro. And I mean, let me type this down. Do I read chat? I don't know if this is what you mean, but yes. What's up, man? Yeah. So the comments are coming late, but I've been talking for over an hour right here, so I'm gonna have to just keep this rolling. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Andrew Candela. Thank you, Anakin Skywalker. Thank you to the Semiotic Alchemist. And I'm gonna have some further discussions about these things down the line. So Anakin, you're an anonymous. Okay, peace, bro. That's what it is, man. All right. Um, Peace. Oh wait, metaprogramming, the human biocomputer. Yeah, man, I like that. That's John C. Lilly John C. Lilly's book, Programming and Metaprogramming the Human Biocomputer. Word up. Thank you for dropping that. I'll actually, Andrew, I'll do a video about that as well. Yeah. QAnon is fake. Yeah, well, QAnon is fake. Right on, Anakin. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, if that's what you mean, like the shit that they're talking is fake. Yes, agreed. But the people moving with these fucking garbage programs of QAnon, those people were very real. You know, so. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for commenting, everyone. And like I said, I'm going to drop some more videos in the near future. So yeah, thank you guys. Peace out.